we're going to reflect on the politics of climate change, and actually climate change from all four perspectives. We're going to look at the geographic, economic, political, and social perspectives. Keep in mind that as I record this, we're in some changing times. The readings really talked about how things were in the Bush administration, and we didn't have any readings beyond the Bush administration. And the current administration, the Obama administration, really is taking a different approach, and we don't really know where that's going to go yet. So the times are changing, things are in shift, but let's talk about some things that we know. The geographic perspective. Where you are determines how you are impacted by global warming. For instance, if you're up in the polar regions, you can probably see that there's less ice. You can see polar bears not being able to swim from place to place because there's so great distances because there's less ice. If you're in an already dry region, like out in a desert area, you'll see that that desert is expanding. In coastal areas, we're seeing the destruction of shorelines, and in here on the west coast of the United States, we're seeing tsunami areas being set, and the loss of shoreland. So there's all sorts of impacts that we can see, and the impacts that you can see really depend on where you are. And there's a question of whether the people who are in places where they can see the climate change, can they take enough action to do anything about it? For instance, various states like California have passed legislation trying to have an impact on climate change. Can one state make a difference? And as people become more aware of climate change, I think people are more willing to make changes. Let's talk next about the economic perspective. As we were reading, we could frequently see it's monetary interests that is compelling the political action. So because there was talk about the petroleum industry and the gasoline industry, they make plenty of money the way things are now. They don't really want to make any changes for climate change because that's not going to help their bottom line. For energy production, coal is cheap, and a lot of the alternatives, as we talked about when we were talking about alternative energy, a lot of the alternatives are not as cheap as coal right now. Businesses, if they do respond to climate change, probably have to do some retooling. That's going to cost them some money. Of course, in our current economy, that spending of money is good as it creates jobs and the like. But for the business that's having to spend the money, not necessarily so good. And now that we know more about climate change, we have to think about what's the cost of not taking action. What if we just continue doing what we've always done? That has some costs now too that people can see. There's been a lot of talk of voluntary action by industry, but I think that in our article, number 29 argues that voluntary action can do the trick in its 3 easy ways to stop climate change. I don't know if I believe that or not. Anyways, we could also pay poor countries for climate change benefits. And that's an approach that poor countries are often willing to listen to, especially if it's an adequate amount of money to make up for the damaging behavior that they might have done otherwise. Of course, our readings all focus on the political arena. It's an important realm for action. We can't really move forward on climate change without action in the political arena. And we saw in our readings that making lawmakers take action is a tough thing, especially when they're not going to be able to say at the end of their term, see, the climate is better because I took action. As we read, there's a lot of skepticism in the United States because we want to be suspicious, and change does take time. We're just not going to see it overnight. The social perspective. There's a big impact on people with fewer resources. We saw that in our research about Hurricane Katrina and how we're providing disaster relief for that, for the tsunami that we did a little bit of reading about, but people get tired after a while of donating to these causes. We're going to finish this in the next section.